If you have wisdom, then you can always manage knowledge fine. But lacking wisdom, knowledge is just information. And it's really quantifiable according to the motivation. Like knowledge is just a neutral thing. And so what makes the difference with knowledge is really motivation. What one does with knowledge, what one's intentions are with knowledge, and how you manage the knowledge, whether the knowledge is really helpful or destructive, immediately or ultimately. What is motivation? Motivation is why you do what you do. And it's different for everyone. It's very personal. You can't really tell. Nobody can look at you and see what is your motivation unless you're wearing a sign or something. But motivation is the personal drive, why you're doing what you do. And you will be limited by, your accomplishment will be limited by your motivation. You can't exceed your motivation. So the spiritual teachings and teachers that I'm familiar with train us very diligently in cultivating pure motivation. Motivation that's not corrupted by self-interest, but rather works for the success of others. And in that, it's surprising. One can find a different kind of happiness. It's not as fragile a happiness as we usually find. And with that greater and greater inclusivity, you see, this is what happens, is our motivation has boundaries or levels. And so someone's excluded. There's always someone left outside somewhere. And the greatest of motivation is a motivation that has the greatest inclusivity. How far the success of others reaches in one's own mind, and moving the mind towards greater and greater inclusivity produces greater and greater evolution. Maybe you would say, wisdom. Ultimately, wisdom can't be left out of anything. Wisdom is really the essence of everything. And yet we put the walls and we set the parameters for our success. And we automatically limit our potential. You can do a small thing for a great motivation and produce a great result. You can do a great thing with a small motivation and produce a very small result. The difference is the motivation. So knowledge is really confined to the motivation. It's possible to have enlightened business. I think business serves a purpose. It's a service. It just can't be exclusive. It needs to really benefit all beings. It might not be the business itself. If I'm making bread, I'm going to be able to make bread, I'll have bread, the people who work for me will have a job, there will be people who need bread, they'll have bread. But more than that, what do I do with the profits of my bread? How do I care for the people who are making the bread? What love and compassion do I put into the bread? How do the others who find the bread receive the bread? There's a lot of ways in which influence, positive energy, and kindness and love extends, not just in the product, but in the changes that the product makes in people. The purpose, again, it's the motivation. The motivation is the conductivity. What is the motivation? And then even if the job is small and the motivation great, the result will be great.